All right, so like we said, 33 multiple choice questions. There are 6 written response items. I'll kind of talk about what those will be after I go over what the key points for this unit are. So this is what you'll probably want to write down, is what kind of things are going to be important here. Okay, so the first thing that we talked about is the structure of the atom and the history of the atom. All right, so history of the atom is like people. All right, like Dalton's pretty important. Rutherford would probably be the second most important because he confirmed the nucleus. Okay, but anybody, Thomson discovered electrons, Chadwick neutrons, whatever. Yes, there could be some multiple choice about the facts. Okay, about the people and the kind of the trivia, for lack of a better term. Right, there could be some of that in the multiple choice. What there will be in the written response is stuff about the structure of the atom. Okay, if you recall, when I taught this lesson, I said there has not been a unit exam that I can remember where I didn't ask people to draw a diagram of an atom. I still don't recall a unit exam where that's happened, and I made yours already. Hint, hint. Okay, now, what do we expect to see in a diagram of the atom? I expect to see, first, the proper model, the currently accepted one. And I expect to see the 3 particles in the proper places. And I expect to see them in the proper numbers. Okay, right number of neutrons, right number of electrons, right number of protons. Okay, 5 marks. Make sure you're ready for that one. Okay, so we want the currently accepted model, number of protons, neutrons, and electrons. Okay, and obviously they need to all be in the right place. That's part of currently accepted model. Okay, the second thing we did was naming and formulae of compounds. While there's, yes, a couple of multiple choice questions about, what's the formula for copper 2 oxide or something like that, like there could be some multiple choice that's just about naming or just about formulas. The main reason naming and formulas is important is you can't do reactions or the mole equation without it. Okay, if you can't write the proper chemical formula, you won't get reactions predicted or balanced, you won't get your mole equation calculations correct, and man, will it snowball on you. Okay, so we have to be able to write the names and formulae of ionic and molecular compounds. Absolutely crucial. Okay, things people forget. Okay, the little things, and this is important for your chemical reactions assignment. Okay, that is due tomorrow. Okay, remember things like Roman numerals. When do I need Roman numerals? When I have a multivalent metal in an ionic compound. Okay, I don't need it all the time. Okay, and do I need a Roman numeral on an element? I do not. Okay, that is also a very common mistake. Do Roman numerals appear in chemical formulas? No, they only appear in names. Okay, those are places where people make mistakes. All right, we only use Roman numerals in a chemical formula. All right, and then our special elements, that's the other one, because that can really mess up your balancing if you forget that nitrogen comes as a 2, or sulfur comes as an 8, or phosphorus comes as a 4, or whatever. Okay, make sure that we remember our special elements. Okay. That's especially important now because you've used the periodic table enough that you probably know the formulas for most of the common things, and so you don't always look at your periodic table now. Okay, make sure you're always looking at your periodic table so that you remember, oh right, that one's yellow, it's a 2, that one's blue, that one's orange. Okay, so that we get those ones right. Okay, questions so far? All right, about your periodic table. You can have your periodic table for the test, okay? But here's how that's going to work. I will call you over to the table on Thursday to give you your test. When I do that, you will bring your phone in the off condition, not silent, off. It has to be powered down placed in that box. You will also bring your periodic table with you, which I will give a quick inspection of to make sure you haven't written any notes to yourself on it. Okay, if it looks good, then you can use it on the test. If it has too much stuff on it, then I'll give you a fresh one. Okay, everybody follow there. Okay. Also, in that bin will have to be, if you have an Apple Watch or other device capable of communicating with the internet via Wi-Fi or cell. Okay, so you have to put that in the box as well. Okay, any use of those devices during the test would constitute cheating, and you will get a 0. Yeah, not cool. Seen it happen on a diploma exam, and that was when they were worth 50, not 30. That's an automatic failure. Okay, an epic failure. Okay, a tears and gnashing of teeth type failure. But you get told how many times don't bring your cell phone to the test. So I'm telling you now, don't bring your cell phone. Well, you're going to bring it and you're going to put it in there. Okay, and it's going to be off. All right. Third thing, properties of compounds. That would be lesson 4 and your properties of compounds lab. Okay, there will be questions about the properties of compounds and your lab. Okay, could very easily make up a multiple choice question that would sound something like this. You have a red crystalline solid that is highly soluble. Its solution conducts electricity and has a pH of 6. Which of the following is its most likely identity? A, butter, B, sugar, C, water, or D, cobalt 2 chloride? Butter, yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay. So something like that. Okay. It would be, that would be one of the ways that I would test. Okay, I remember that ionic compounds have, they conduct electricity, and that, they're red is the color of cobalt-containing compounds, and so on and so on. Okay, so very easy to make a multiple choice question like that to test those types of things. Also, in terms of properties of compounds, there are a couple of written response items where the properties of compounds is going to be important. Okay, because I'm going to give you some kind of real world situations, and those are what I call the wheat from the chaff kind of questions. Okay, those are the ones that tell me people know the material here, or they know it way up here. Okay, so there's questions there that'll show me I really know this stuff, or I know it okay. Okay, and properties of compounds are going to be one of the things that'll be in that type of question. Okay, all right. Fourth thing we went over, solubility. Okay, so you need to know all the terminology related to solubility, because there could be some multiple choice questions about that, but also because I will use that same terminology on the test. Okay, so if a question says, here's a chemical reaction, a precipitate is formed, which of the products is the precipitate? If you don't know what a precipitate is, that question becomes very difficult. Okay, so expect probably something like that, okay, where I would give you a reaction and then ask you to figure out which of the products is soluble and which one isn't using your solubility chart. Okay, so that would be the other part of it, okay, not just terminology, but also being able to use the chart, okay, to figure out whether something is soluble or not. All things that we've done in class. Okay, polar nature of water. We need to be able to explain what a polar molecule is. Okay, that's where the electrons aren't shared equally, so one end becomes positive and one end becomes negative. Okay, that causes some different behaviors like cohesion and adhesion, water tension, surface tension, okay, stuff of that nature, and how that can be used by living organisms. We talked about how trees use it to help them draw the water up the plant, okay, and how the Jesus lizard can run across the surface of the water, or bugs can sit on the surface of the water, okay, things of that nature. So there will be a written response question about the polar nature of water, where I'm going to expect you can write down an explanation of what that is. Okay, so what's a polar molecule? Okay, cohesion and adhesion, okay, real world examples. reactions. If there's one topic that we covered in this unit that is worth more marks than anything else, it's reactions. Okay, there are multiple choice questions about identifying reaction types. Okay, there are, oh geez, let's see, 8. I want to say there are somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 or more marks, probably more, okay, on this test that are just about reactions. Okay, so if there's one thing you should know better than everything else, it's that. Okay, and the reason that reactions is more than just I read my notes and I know what they are, is that reactions are skill based. Okay, so when I assess your, let's say, skills and knowledge of reactions, I'm testing more the skills than the knowledge. Okay? There's not really a lot of knowledge that goes along with reactions, but there's a lot of skills that have to be demonstrated. The best way to prepare for a test that is going to test your skills is to practice said skills. All right, you have a bunch of reaction worksheets in the digital workbook. You have your reaction assignment that you're currently working on. Okay, all of those are things that you would want to use to help you study, in addition to the review package that I gave you and the practice test. All right. So for chemical reactions, you need to be able to identify reaction types. You need to be able to predict products, write them out, and balance them. Bless you. Okay, and then we talked about the mole equation. Okay, there's only 4 ways I can ask you a mole equation question. Make sure you know all 4 in case they're all on the test. Or maybe 3 out of 4 are on there, but you don't know which 3. Okay, so there'll be some problem solving to do with that. Right, but it's exactly what we've been doing in class. Okay, it's here's the problem, write your givens, write the formula. Okay, it's pretty cookbook. All right, and then the very last thing here, guys, has to do with the scientific method. Okay, you had 2 labs in this unit, right? You had to, identify variables in those labs. You had to generate hypotheses and things like that. So expect that there will be a couple of multiple choice questions related to the scientific method. That would be maybe they give you a description of an experiment and ask you what the manipulated variable for that experiment is. Or they give you a description of an experiment and ask you which of the following would be a good hypothesis, A, B, C, or D. Okay, so those are things to look for, okay, or to make sure that you go over. We did that whole lesson on lab report expectations where you wrote down, manipulated variable responding. You'll want to go over that stuff. That's how I'm testing that. Okay. All right, so specifically about the test. It's out of 84 marks in total. Okay, 33 of those are the multiple choice questions. They're 1 mark each. Okay, so things in the multiple choice would be physical versus chemical changes. Okay, that's like review of Science 9 kind of stuff. We talked about scientific method would be in there. Properties of compounds is in there. Solubility, properties of compounds, solubility, properties of compounds, chemical versus physical properties, scientific method, atomic structure, properties of compounds, polar nature of water and hydrogen bonds, atomic structure, naming, some more naming, formulas, structure of the atom, chemical reactions, structure of the atom, solubility, structure of the atom. So, okay, give you an idea there. Okay, what's in the multiple choice? Okay, it's lots of stuff that's basically just recall. Okay. All right, in the written response, there are 7 balancing questions. That's how it starts off. Okay, question number 1 is 7 reactions that have to be balanced. Just balanced, not written, just balanced. Fill in the blanks. If you are filling in blanks and something is a 1, what do you put in the blank? Right. Okay, question number 2 has 4 reactions that need to be predicted and balanced with the type identified. Okay, and guys, when I give a question, I always boldface and italicize the important things. So, okay, it says, write the equations with formulas of the reactions below. Identify what type of reaction, that's in bold, is occurring, in bold. Predict the products, in bold. Balance the reaction. Okay, so make sure you're reading the question carefully so you don't forget to do something that's worth marks. All right, so like I said, there's 4 reactions that have to be predicted. All right, then we have a structure of the atom question, which we talked about already, and then there are 4 mole equation problems. Okay, then we have a question about water. Okay, and then there is our wheat from the chaff question, and that one is, like when you read it, you're going to go, Mr. Coderre, you didn't teach that. Okay, and that's okay. That's the reaction that you should have when you read that question. I taught you everything you need to know to come up with an answer for that. This is what we call a synthesis type of question, where you have to come up with an answer from your skills and knowledge. Okay, that is the most difficult type of question. Okay, which is why there's only 1 on there. Okay, the rest of it is skills and demonstration and stuff like that. Synthesis is the most difficult. So, okay, on that one, you've got to come up with it. So in terms of marks here, we have 7, 23. So in the written response alone, there are 23 marks on reactions. Okay, each one of the prediction problems is a 4-mark question. So there's 16 marks in the predicting, 7 marks in the balancing, and that's just in the written. There's probably another 5 or 6 in the multiple choice. Okay, there are 8, 11. There are 14 marks on the mole equation. And then the other ones are, 5 marks here, 4 marks there. Okay, also guys, I always put the point value in brackets after the question, right? So if you have a question, after the question will be bracket and then a number, closed bracket. Okay, that's how many marks the question is out of. It's always a good idea to look at that so you know about how much you need to write. Okay, if it's a 5-mark question, you should fill up the space. If it's a 2-mark question, you probably don't have to write nearly as much. Okay. All right, so that is what is on there. Now, suggestions for you. I kind of gave you these already, but I'll suggest them again. Read over your notes. Okay. When you read over your notes, it's not a bad idea to have like a notebook handy or your computer handy and type out a couple of things that you think might be something you need to focus on. All right, that would be like solubility terminology or polar nature of water stuff. Okay, that's stuff that's out of your notes. Okay, so it's stuff you'd want to focus on. Hopefully you've noticed that as I teach, I slow down sometimes and I really make a point of something. Okay, hopefully when I do that, it's something you write down. Usually in the first unit, I go, you should probably write this down, or I didn't see anybody write that down. Okay, that means that I'm making a question on the unit exam about this, and you should really pay attention. Right, so hopefully you've been doing that. If not, well, for the next 3 units that's code for this is on the test. Okay. So hopefully you've made some notes about that, and if you have, then obviously those are things that you need to go over. Okay, when you're looking through your notes, I always have key points at the beginning. they're key for a reason. Okay? They're the things that I'm going to test you on, so make sure you're ready for those. And then practice. Okay, practice some mole equation problems, practice some reactions. Okay, make sure that you can do that stuff efficiently, okay, and correctly, obviously, for the test. Okay, but just reading your notes isn't going to get it done. All right, and that's a mistake I often see grade 10s make on their first unit exam. Like, oh, Mr. Cooder, I read my notes over and over and over again. Guys, reading your notes only covers a few question types, and most of those are knowledge, recall, that's it. Okay, it might help you on the multiple choice, but it's not going to help you in the written response, where I'm testing what can you do versus what do you know. Okay, so make sure you are practicing the stuff that you need to show me you can do. Okay, really, really important, okay, that you study that way. It's the different sciences have different ways to prepare. Okay, chemistry and physics are very much skill-based. They are demonstrate your skills, practice your skills. There's so much of that. Okay, biology is very much read and regurgitate. Okay, and it's read the notes over and over and again, memorize that this part of the cell has this job and stuff like that. Okay, it's very different, right? But for chemistry, you definitely need to have your skills set, polished, and ready. Okay. All right, I'll take questions. Any questions?
How much is that hard question?
It is a 5-mark question, which basically means there's probably 5 things that are 5 things that I'd be looking for in the question. Okay, like maybe it's a question that has a solubility component and then a properties of compounds component and then something about reactions and stuff like that. So how you work those things together, right? Something like that. Okay. All right, other questions? Okay, so it was my plan to let you have today in class to work on studying for the test. All right, that way if questions came up, I'm here to answer them for you. I'm also obviously here in scheduled help, okay, today and tomorrow and Wednesday, okay. I'm also here in scheduled help other days, but it's after the test and it won't be as important then. Okay, so yeah, make sure guys that you're popping in. I'm also here at lunch hour. I only have, well, actually I won't be available at lunch hour today, but I will be available second half of lunch tomorrow. But you can come into the cafeteria and ask me questions while I'm on supervision tomorrow, first half if you really want to. Okay, so yeah, take advantage, okay, that I'm also in here at lunch and I have no life. So, you know, it won't hurt my feelings if you come in and bother me because it won't really bother me. Okay. All right. So my suggestion then is let's start going over the review package that I gave you. Okay, things like that. Make sure that that practice test is one of the last things you do. Okay, otherwise all it's going to tell you is you're not ready yet. Okay, you want to be kind of ready for that practice test. Incidentally, the practice test, all of those questions have been on the unit exam before. Okay, I basically made that test out of questions I chose to no longer use. Okay, I used different versions of those same questions. The skeleton of that practice test is exactly the same as the skeleton I used to make your test. All right, my tests always have the same skeleton. Okay, that is the bones are all there, but the tissue goes on after and the tissue might be a little different. Okay, but the structure is the same. I'm going to ask the same kinds of questions, just worded differently. All right, so make sure you take advantage of that. All right. Okay, so if questions come up, please ask, okay? And I'm happy to help you with those.